Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is the 17th of January, 2025, not 2024. Don't screw up and put that on any paperwork today. It is 2025. And today we've got a lot of stuff that we're going to end up going over. The U.S. Treasury looks like it actually did, in fact, get hacked. At least somebody's coming out and saying that. And it's possible that China is behind it. Ukraine's going around rounding up a bunch of people. Today had announced that they had gone around, ran a bunch of people that were ignoring the war efforts, but even more so, probably the most shocking thing that I was just notified about before I came on, and I'm going to have somebody call in and actually speak about it that's familiar with the matter, is that the sounds like right now over inside Israel, inside Gaza, it sounds like the Israeli Defense Force is actually refusing to withdraw from the Netzrim corridor, like defying orders and staying in there. And it hasn't hit the news yet. Hopefully, I don't know, but it sounds like they're refusing orders and they don't want to give up any terrain inside the Netzrim corridor. They don't agree with this decision. It's going to be developing over time. It may or may not hit. AP Payne, thank you for coming in and gifting out those 10 memberships. Greatly appreciate you, brother. Good to have you guys in the house this morning. Sorry for being a little bit late. Again, still working on everything that's developing with the Leibelsberger case and everything else that's going on. A lot of information that's going to be coming your guys' way in the future. I just can't tell you when that information is going to come out or is going to get released, but I promise you it is coming. So thank you for sticking with me as long as you guys have. John Wilson coming in, dropping 20 Speak the Truth memberships. Man, you guys are generous as all can be this morning. Greatly appreciate you guys. So we're going to be going pretty deep. Just FYI, we're going to be going pretty deep into that. That's going to be a whole video within itself. So look forward to that when that ends up getting dropped and coming out. Obviously, there's an active investigation taking place, and a lot of stuff is going into it. The best I'm going to do for you guys right now is from the information that I have at hand. I will tell you that it does sound like everybody with common sense in the world that looked at stuff from the Sean Ryan show to the individual that conducted the individual that was part of the incident over inside Vegas, and everything that happened, it is starting to add up and look like there's another explanation for it. And so that explanation is not for me to release. That explanation is not for me to throw out there. If you're tracking along and paying attention to everything that I've been putting out, you're going to figure it out. Follow me over on Twitter. Make sure you guys are following me on Twitter. It's up in the top. What is it? I can't even get it right. Over here. If you're not following me on Twitter yet, make sure you're doing that. It's very important, everything that we have going on. So congratulations. And I forgot to tell you guys, I should probably talk about that and announce that tonight. Always last in line coming in and gifting out another Speak the Truth membership. Your boy is going to be on Newsmax tonight at 5:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time or Eastern Time. Feel free to go over there and watch it. I'll be getting interviewed. Make sure you guys go over there and check that out. We're going to be talking about the Leibelsberg case, so get behind that. You guys are going to love it. We've got, I said, always last in line came in gifting out that Speak the Truth membership. For you guys that are over there watching me over on Twitter, thank you for following me over there. I look forward to continuing to update you guys with as much information that I have as possible, and I'll continue to do that as everything develops. So I appreciate everybody. I appreciate all of your support, and I'm happy to be able to, be of service and provide this service to y'all. So thank you very much. Let's go ahead, dive into it, and let's bring up the first topic that we're going to be going over, and it is the ceasefire over inside of Israel. Now, this ceasefire agreement, allegedly, we talked about the multiple stages and everything else that was going into it, and truthfully, I can read through this document. I don't even think it matters right now with everything that we have just kind of like learned this morning. And like I said, here in a little bit, I'm going to announce the person's going to call in when it's time. We're going to go over this and what's taking place inside Gaza, because there's a lot of people that are pissed off inside Israel that this ceasefire deal is going through. There's a lot of people that are pissed off that it's having holdups right now. And it sounds like the service members inside Israel, the ones that have been giving their freaking blood to this and losing all of their friends, are now standing up and saying, absolutely not, we're not going to deal with it. I wouldn't call it a mutiny, perhaps, right now, but it is a issue. There is the potential, if that goes off, and they've refused to withdraw, and the unit commanders are refusing to withdraw, that hostage lives could be at stake. And so it's a very serious matter. right? It's a very, very serious matter. And I think from the soldier perspective, the best way that I can describe or explain why they would be doing that, why they're doing what they're doing, in my opinion, would be because they don't want to look like the U.S., right? Like, how many times have we as service members been used as frickin' pawns in this political machine, this political game? We've seen the military being over politicized and used for political measures. And that's exactly what's happening in this one. You know, you have soldiers that had a mission, which was go in, kill Hamas, and get the hostages back. That's their job. Go in, kill Hamas, and get their hostages back. I'm a strong supporter of Israel. I've never hid that fact. I am extremely against terrorism. I am extremely against Hamas. You know, I have an extreme bias towards terrorism and Hamas for obvious reasons. And I can tell you from a soldier perspective that when we see things like what took place in Afghanistan during the withdrawal and how bad that frickin' hurt, not because we failed as service members, but because the government failed us and is making deals with terrorists, thinking that somehow it's going to pay off. And it's not, by the way. I know we've talked about this on this program. Israel doesn't want that. People who don't learn from history are bound to repeat it. Well, here's history for you. A couple years ago, the United States made a deal with terrorists. They were in violation of that frickin' deal before we pulled out of Afghanistan, and they continued to be in violation of that deal to this day. And we have done nothing about it. Instead, we've released funds that we have held up, and we've been giving them money. We've been giving them humanitarian aid. We've been going to town because of politics. And we're not looking at national security. And I feel like those service members that are over there and the oath that they take and what they feel that their job is, right? It's the Israeli Defense Force. Their job is to defend the people of Israel. It's not the Israeli Offensive Force. It's the Israeli Defense Force. And right now, the IDF, as far as I know, is doing what they think is best to defend the people of Israel. And if you can't get behind that, you've got another freaking problem. And you got to remember too, you know, we're talking about lives, and what life is more important than the other, right? Is there any human life that's worth less than another human life? No, it's not. But that's part of the deal that's going into this whole hostage negotiation. Female soldiers are going to cost more terrorist prisoners that Israel's holding on to than civilians. These animals are still holding, like these animals took a 9-month-old baby. They took a 9-month-old baby. And right now, Israel is trying to come to the grips that they're going to have 50% of the hostages that get returned to them, if they even get 100% of the hostages back, alive or dead, that 50% of them are going to be decayed bodies. And they're likely going to show signs of rape. They're likely going to show signs of torture. They're likely not going to be in the best of health when they come out. They are going to be psychologically damaged for the rest of their life after being held in captivity by Hamas during this time frame. And the IDF's not standing for it. And I think, personally, my personal belief, my personal opinion is that these people, these soldiers who it sounds like right now are refusing to take part in this BS because they know it's going to fail. They've seen it fail. It's failed over inside Lebanon. It's failed inside Gaza in the past. And we have zero reason to believe that it's going to succeed this go round. They're standing up and doing what's right. They have been standing by throughout the course of this entire war, allowing Hamas and hostages, Hamas a route to take the hostages and flee the city, right? Before they go in, before they conduct their assaults, before they go in. And we've got, video evidence from the Al-Shifa hospital that the hospital staff is taking freaking hostages, or was aware that these hostages actually existed, right? And when Israel went in there, that was video evidence, right? We got video evidence straight from the CCTV cameras that you had people being drugged into the Al-Shifa hospital, walking perfectly normal, not a freaking problem with them, being drugged through the hospital. For what reason? It's not because they need medical treatment, because you're talking 2 hours after the incidents. They're being drugged inside against their will by armed terrorists. And now that this ceasefire agreement has gone up, what are they doing over in Gaza right now? Imagine being inside Gaza. Imagine being on the Netzarim corridor and looking out at the freaking major urban areas and seeing this shit after the announcement of the ceasefire deal. This is the problem. The problem is that this is going on over there inside Gaza. Mainstream media is not talking about it. Nobody wants to talk about it. Do you really think that these animals, are going to stop and not try to reorganize, rearm, and reattack? It's absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, those are children. You are correct. Those are children. Look at this one in the back, holding on to what appears to be a Glock 19 or Glock 17. That one's younger than the one in the front. And the other ones that I showed the other night, they're freaking babies still. They're 14 years old. They don't know they look up here. I think we voted on it. 14 years old was like the median age that everybody agreed on. They're babies. And if any of you have a 14-year-old freaking boy in high school, dude, you know that they don't know any better. I don't blame these children. I don't. And I've talked about this before on this podcast several different times. I don't blame these children for being in this environment. You know who I blame for this? I blame their parents. I blame their upbringing. I blame the freaking adults that are putting this on them. That's who's to blame for this. Not the kids, not the freaking population. It's the radicals that are pushing this agenda on the kids. It's absolutely ridiculous. With that being said, we had AP Payne come in, originally gifting out 10 Speak the Truth memberships. We had John Wilson coming in, dropping 2 Speak the Truth memberships over on YouTube. Always last in line, gifted that one. Texas Actual coming in, gifting out 50 Speak the Truth memberships. Patrick Loudon coming in, gifting out 5 doll hairs. And he says saw some quotes saying they didn't see their brothers and sisters in arms losing limbs and dying to award their accomplishment back to Hamas. Holy hell. That's one hell of a freaking statement. They didn't see their brothers and sisters lose their arms in combat and their lives in combat just to hand over a victory to Hamas. You mean to tell me that all of those IDF service members, if you want to believe the 46 or 47,000 figure of Gazan civilians that have lost their lives, and let's say you're on that side of the house and you're not pro IDF, but you sure as shit aren't pro Hamas because you don't stand for terrorism like the rest of the freaking world with common sense, and you want what's best for the Palestinian people. Most of you would agree that Hamas is not good for the Palestinian people. This is Hamas. You don't believe me? That kid in the back that looks like 5, 6 years old that's holding up a Glock 19, he's wearing a Hamas headband. This is not good for the Palestinian people. How could that possibly be good? How could you possibly sit there as a rational human being and say, yes, it is okay to indoctrinate a 5-year-old child, give him a headband and a freaking Glock, and give his freaking 10-year-old brother, if that's what he is, a freaking AK with a loaded mag to drive down the street and celebrate this shit? If you are on that side of history, you are wrong. You are on the wrong side of history. Hamas will rebuild. They will rearm. They will not abide. They answer to God. They do not answer to the laws of man. How many more times do I have to say it? That's why every single one of these negotiations has freaking failed. And it's appalling that this administration and all of the forms of government look at this and say, yep, 100%. They are going to be truthful and honest, and they are going to return the hostages. They're not going to violate the ceasefire agreement, and they're going to lay down their arms as if that worked inside of Lebanon, as if that worked inside of Afghanistan, as if that worked inside of Iraq or anywhere else in this freaking world where terrorism exists. Never, ever, ever has it ever been okay. Meanwhile, service members are over inside of the freaking Red Sea getting shot at by the Houthis. Houthis, major terror organization, launching ballistic missiles. And this administration is okay with negotiating with terrorists. When we said turn our hostages back over, we said we want them back by January 20th, and we meant it. And not just ours. You better be releasing those. Every single hostage that's still alive that you took on October 7th better come back in one piece. When we said that, we weren't just talking about the U.S. hostages, in my opinion. I don't think we were. We're talking about every single one this terror organization took. Mark my words. This will not end well for Hamas. This will not end well. The Israeli Defense Force is standing up for the people inside of Israel by refusing to leave the corridor, whether you like it or not. And the amount of lives, and we have to suck down the ugly, dirty, God to honest truth. And that ugly, God's to honest truth is that no life is worth more than another. My life is not worth more than anybody else that's in this chat, that's watching this on YouTube, that's listening. I don't care where you're listening to me from. My life is not worth more than yours, and vice versa. And yet, for some reason, for a political reason, it would seem that the hostage lives are worth more than everybody else. And I do agree the hostages need to come back, but they need to come back correct. They need to come back knowing that that's not the case. Now, there is an exception to this rule. And the exception to that rule, which I deeply believe, is that the Israeli Defense Force did sign up to give their lives for their country, just like I did for my country. And you will put your money where your mouth is, and you will get your butt on the front line, and you'll pull the trigger, and you'll do the right thing in combat, should you be called upon to do it. And they have. And they're willing to give their lives for the people of Israel. But what they're not willing to do is give their lives for the people of Israel, reportedly, allegedly, just to know that what's waiting for them on the backside is more death and destruction for Israeli civilians, for U.S. civilians, for everybody else in this world. Hamas is a major threat. And yet, for some flipping reason, they refuse to pull out. Why? Because they see this. This is what they've been seeing. They've been hearing celebratory fire. They see that stuff on a daily basis, things that are not being shown in mainstream media, and it needs to end. And Hamas, you better release those dang hostages. I'm telling you right now, every last one of them, whatever deal you think you have, I promise you, you don't. You don't. It's so freaking annoying. So annoying. John Wilson came in with 20. I just wanted to say, for the people who partake in ice fishing, specifically Midwestern region, please be safe with vehicles on the ice. There has been 4 vehicles falling through the ice in the past week. Holy cow. That's scary. Scuba Greg. Dude, Scuba, what's up, bro? Scuba, I haven't seen you in a while, man. Thank God you're here. Ah, man, I miss me some Scuba Greg. Gosh, dang, I miss him. So it's not even worth looking into that. But if we want to talk about it, here it is. Then Yahoo says Israel-Hamas ceasefire deal has been finalized after blaming Hamas for last-minute crisis. And word is that this has still not been voted on yet, and that they're going to be voting on it sometime in the near future. Maybe today, maybe tomorrow. We don't know. If it hit in the last 45 minutes, I missed it. You'll have to excuse me. I know I told you guys, just like I have always told you, I do not believe one tiny flippin' bit that ceasefire deals are going to work with Hamas. What I heard is that Hamas came back. The reason it hasn't been voted on yet is because Hamas has already came back and said that they want to, hear me out on this, that they want Israel to completely withdraw from Gaza before they release the hostages. That's what I heard. No, I'm not going to reveal my source to you. That's what I heard. That Hamas has changed the terms. So if Hamas changed the terms, well, that goes directly in line with history. The same shit they did the last time, that there was a deal that was agreed upon, and those terms were Israel has to get out of the Gaza Strip. It's absolutely appalling. Yeah. Hey, Maya, I know you're listening. If you would like to call in, please, now is a good time. You are more than welcome to call in. I'd love to get you on the phone and hear what it is you've been hearing. Feel free to give me a buzz. The line is open for you, ma'am. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to allow this individual to come on and speak about some of the things that she's aware of. Let me know if you can't hear. You should be able to, no problem. Ma'am, how are you?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Good. What are you hearing?
I'm good. So I'm hearing a lot. I heard very early on, as soon as they started alerting said there was going to be movement. They were pulling back from the Netzarim Carter. There was immediately pushback from boots on the ground, especially, and I find this to be interesting, from the reservists. The reason I find it to be so interesting is something that you said, that you just said. Most of the IDF it's a draft. It's a mandatory draft. A lot of the reservists who are there now, even though they got called up, a lot of them are back there voluntarily because they did release a lot of reservists home, and people were like, no, I'm going to stay with my unit. And I think they feel that extra, like, I showed up and I stayed and I fought for my country. No way are you going to just pull me out. And I think also for a lot of Israelis, there's a sense of deja vu from back from the disengagement. And they feel like, last time we came here, we sacrificed, we settled here, we built these beautiful communities, and we were pulled out. And this is what Gaza turned into.
Yeah.
And this time we fought for it, and we lost limbs, and we lost friends, and we lost family members. We are not giving it back. Certainly not under these circumstances. And I'm definitely hearing that there's so much strong pushback that we have leadership negotiating with their subordinates for cooperation, because ultimately it's not really their choice either.
Right.
And it's interesting because a lot of unideal things have happened since the war. I remember in the very beginning when we were just sitting outside waiting for the green light to go in, people were getting so frustrated, and they were like, why can't they just unleash the military? And, they were being held back, but nobody, thank God, did anything prematurely and at that time. But I think it's interesting that the soldiers are standing up and they're like, no, we're not ceding back this land. And I saw someone put in a comment about not, like how their friends lost life and limb.
Mm-hmm.
I can testify to that. Thank God we're able to keep the casualties to fairly low. Every life lost is a universe in itself. But for what it could have been, the loss of life was the casualty ratio was pretty low. But
right.
Thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people between the ages of 18 and 30 have lost limbs. The entire face of my generation has changed.
Right. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I was just putting a video up. It's insane. Mm-hmm. It's insane to think about negotiating with terrorists after we've seen time and time again how negotiations with terrorists fail. And it brings up the next question too. Like Israel needs to get its stuff together. What does the idea, like, what does everybody, because I want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
It's unprompted. We haven't talked about it. Mm-hmm. it. If you don't want to say any word about it, don't say a word about it. Just refuse.
Okay.
What's the general feeling about Jolani taking over inside of Syria? I think
things
there's that you've heard from Israelis or whoever.
In the beginning, I think there was apprehension. There was a lot more apprehension because, just if you think about his last name is Jolani, which is the Arabic for from the Golan. Mm-hmm. People were afraid that he was going to say, "Oh, this is my ancestral homeland. I'm going to take it back. We're going to annex Syria." I think from a population standpoint, I think people were pleasantly surprised that he said, Israel is we're not at war with Israel. And, a lot of the local populations, the Druze Arabs that live on the other side of the Hermon, in the Syrian Golan, they are throwing their lot with Israel, and he has allowed Israel to establish this buffer zone. So I think there's kind of a uneasy, kind of an apprehensive calm, but then from an intelligence standpoint, from what I've heard from people, people who know who he is, mm-hmm. they don't trust him, and they're concerned that that the West seems to have been so easily duped by him putting on a suit. Yeah, they're why does everyone believe him?
Yeah, that's the really good question, right? Because he goes the Al-Nusra Front was established to overthrow Assad and establish a Sunni Islamic caliphate. At the same time, Baghdadi was forming ISIS, or had formed ISIS, to establish a Sunni Islamic caliphate.
And
And
the stated purpose of a caliphate is to advance the jihad. I mean, there's no end point for a caliphate. They want to expand and they want to take over the world, but certainly their region.
right. So why would we take his word for it? That's a serious question, you know? Like, why would that
Yeah.
happen? And I think, in my opinion, I don't know, man. I've got I mean, I could go down a million different rabbit holes looking into the reasons why behind that. And the only thing that I could really think of, because it's definitely not good when it comes to the security of Israel, in my opinion. Like
Yeah.
the odds are, I think the odds are greater, more than likely, that he will go back on his word. And I've mentioned it just this morning on this podcast. Like, the laws of God will always supersede the laws of man in their mind. And so he has felt deeply for over a decade to be in Syria for that specific stated goal and purpose. And that's why the U.S. had put a bounty on his head for his role in Al-Qaeda in Iraq, his leadership in Al-Qaeda in Iraq, his establishment of, the ANF, and then also, the wanting to build, this Islamic Caliphate and his ties to Baghdadi. I mean, all of those are valid reasons to put a $10 million bounty on his head and to keep it there and to make sure he gets freaking strung up. But for some reason, we removed the bounty and he's now running Syria as if, that decade-long bounty that we had sitting on him wasn't freaking valid. I think they put it on him in 2016 or 2015. I forget which one. But I mean, it's insane.
Yeah.
And so my concern for Israel, the Israeli people, is that you have this guy that's moving in that has now essentially control of an entire country with the backing, it looks like, of a NATO country. And the United States removes the bounty. He's got all of this stuff going on for him. You have, what is it? January 26th or 27th is when the ceasefire in Lebanon is supposed to end.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure of the date, but it is expiring soon.
Yeah, I think it's the 26th or 27th is when the ceasefire in Lebanon is supposed to end. And we are supposed to believe that everybody is going to do the right thing, that they're all going to behave. And I don't think they are. And so now we're essentially allowing Hamas to regroup and reorganize right before that expires. And if we do that and they regroup and reorganize and Israel is ordered to pull out of the corridor and they are ordered to get on the outskirts of Gaza, or for some reason politically they want this deal to go through, and Netanyahu and his cabinet have all decided, okay, cool, we'll vote on this deal with the IDF withdrawing from Gaza with the understanding that if they screwed up, we'll go back in. Dude, one day of rebuilding, you're talking about hundreds of soldiers' lives because they're able to go in, set up new ambushes, set up houseborne IEDs, set up all of these things. And it's a massive risk. And at the same time, we have this terror organization over inside Syria, massive terror organization over inside Syria that's now running the country, and Hezbollah inside of Lebanon. And if for some reason they all decide to play ball together, Israel's SOL.
Yeah, I would agree with that assessment. I think part of, I mean, I agree that even one day of rebuilding is going to cost lives. But I will say, I don't want to say too much, but I do have a family member whose body is being held hostage.
Mm-hmm.
And we were made aware that they don't expect this deal to make it through phase one. So it's essentially like grab as many people as we can so they don't execute them before we get to them, especially the vulnerable women and children who may or may not be alive. That's essentially, from what I understand, the point of this ceasefire agreement, because nobody thinks they're going to get through phase one, even through phase one. I don't think they're expecting to receive all 33 of the first group.
Wow.
So I think that's my current understanding of, if they vote on this deal and it passes, what they're looking at realistically.
So I guess, the other question that goes in is like, let's put it this way. In this video that I have up on the screen, I don't know if you can see it or not, but in the video that I have up on the screen, at the end, this kid, somebody actually gave me the Arabic translation for what he's saying, basically that they're not going to stop. You know, and it's...
No, they literally, Sinwar's replacement, who's in Qatar, of course, gave a televised address in which he said that we will make sure October 7th happens every year, which is like just ironic to me that for all the people screaming genocide, I don't know anybody who's been genocided who says we're back at it next year.
Right. We're gonna continue on with our genocide next year. Like, come on, man.
Right.
Like,
right. We'd like to resume the genocide next year. We'll let you know when. Like, nobody does that, so I don't. But you know, I know that there were all these intelligence reports that were released from the U.S. that were saying that Hamas has basically essentially recruited, has refilled its ranks, has recruited almost as many Hamas fighters as we have managed to eliminate.
yep.
But I can tell you from our side, we are aware that Hamas holds aid and food hostage in return for people. Meaning, we know you have two teenage sons, and if they don't show up, you won't get your food. So while I believe that these young men are probably radicalized, they're resorting to essentially holding teenagers hostage to fill their ranks.
You know what's...
feed their families.
You know what's funny is you're not the first person to bring that up to me that's heard about that. And it's interesting because we do have child soldiers that are playing on the screen, celebrating the ceasefire deal, right? Wearing Hamas headbands and all of that crap. You're not the first person that's actually brought that up to me. And I will tell you that that jives hand in hand with a lot of the things that I've seen from other Islamic extremist organizations for what they do. Because the bottom line is, if your family is not supporting the cause, then you are the enemy.
Yeah.
Period. That's how they get treated. So if you get on board, hey, life's good for you. You know, if you've got a fighter, you'll get more food than everybody else. They won't tell them that, but that's what they'll do. Like, they won't publicly announce stuff like that, but that's the type of things that they'll do. Like, your family supplies, we will help your family. Now we're all family. We're going to take care of you better than we take care of, you know, these other heathens that are not giving us what we need. And they get punished exactly how you described, or worse. Yeah. So there's zero reason to believe their word other than some politicians did. And then it opens up the other aspect. And from an Israeli, perspective, from an Israeli soldier perspective, even, how can any politician guarantee, because Hamas has been decimated, they're down to like operating at less than 20%, strength from where they were at the beginning. That's why we're seeing all these kids on the screen and stuff like that, and a lot of these different videos, because they're pulling kids. They're down to less than 20% strength by my best estimates, and based off of intel that Israel's pulled off of objectives, and based off of numbers that are coming out of the Gaza Health Ministry and everything, like less than 20% strength. Their command structure has been decimated, obviously. Like, I got tired of reporting on, like, if it wasn't like battalion level and above, I refused to report on it, because it's just so many commanders were getting schwacked on a daily basis over inside Gaza. And so with that being said, you've got all of these terrorist cells that are running around inside Gaza, and I don't think they're operating in this centralized manner. I don't think that if the word even comes out that this is a real thing, that these terrorists that feel like so strongly in their soul are actually going to abide. How can they even guarantee that all of these jihadists are going to listen to them? Because what that deal does is it goes directly against Hamas's stated goals and their divine right to Israel. And a lot of people are confused. A lot of people think that this is about, being in an open air prison and all that crap, like the propaganda they put out. It's not. It's very clear. Clear as day in writing. This is about taking over Israel and killing the Jews. It's pretty clear. Yep. And if that's...
They said it. They're on camera in these big celebrations. I actually saw a very funny one. It was like it's not funny, but they were interviewing a girl, and they said when will this be over? And she said, when we get rid of all the Jews from the land. And then her friend like pokes her in the ribs, and she goes, I mean all of Israel.
Wow.
So, yeah, I mean, it's not like they got a little bit more PR media savvy, and I think honestly, I don't remember. I heard some commentator, maybe perhaps it was Ben Shapiro, said it best that Israel and Hamas are fighting two different wars, and and a big objective of Hamas was to basically make Israel a pariah and to fool the West into thinking, this is a fight for that they're in the fight of their lives and this is a justified resistance, and they've captured the youth.
Yeah, they absolutely have. 1000%.
So like we ultimately know their goals, but they've duped an entire generation of people into thinking that they're just, resistance fighters, marching for liberation.
Yeah. It's sad.
Which I think another reason why there's so much resistance in Israel to pulling out, because they're like, listen, we lost this propaganda war anyway. So
right.
why are we giving into this?
Well, and this is the other thing that I look at as well. Like if you understand what's actually, like if you actually understand what's taking place and you actually understand why it's taking place, like why October 7th happened, and you actually look into it and you understand why no other country on this planet is going to accept them as refugees. If their leadership goes against the laws of God, it is their responsibility and duty not to listen. And that's the problem with dealing with them. And like that right there can sum it up. Their whole goal is religious oriented. And if you don't believe me, I'll put the dang charter on the screen. Like it is all religious. It's all about taking over Israel. It's all about the destruction of Israel and the totality of Palestine, which is why they say the river to the sea. And it's their divine right to it. If they go against that, if their leadership goes against that, what they stand for and what they believe God has given to them, why, oh, why would they listen to their leadership? I wouldn't, if that's how I felt. I can tell you right now as a Christian, if somebody was to come to me and threaten to cut my head off and demand that I speak out against God or speak out against Jesus Christ, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
I won't. And so if I believe that, and I'm not even a radical extremist and I would allow myself to be killed, what makes you think that these people are going to listen to their leadership when they start going against the laws of God? No politician can guarantee that. None. I don't care who they are. If you understand this issue, you can't guarantee that no matter who you talk to, who you shake hands with, who you grease the wheels with frickin' money, how many frickin' prisoners you end up releasing. That's the other thing that's absolutely appalling about this, dude. You're releasing potentially thousands of people. I haven't done the math yet for how many they're holding on to and what Israel agreed to essentially pay in terrorist prisoners to get them back. That's what's really happening.
Over 1,000. It's like 1,063 or something.
It's disgusting.
It's like a little over 1,000.
It's disgusting. And when we'll take it, when the U.S. released Brittany Griner, forget how to pronounce it. Griner from frickin' Russia. Who did we end up turning back over the Lord of War? Who is supposedly running a bunch of weapons and stuff into Yemen right now?
Yeah.
Right? Like, it is worse for national security to do that. And politicians aren't being honest with the people. And that, in my opinion, is the biggest problem. Like, nobody has the balls to stand up and say, what's actually best for Israel is to choke down the hard truth that we're dealing with a radical Islamic terror organization that likely isn't going to agree, even if we do get a peace deal and hostage exchange signed on, that the people, because of this organization, are likely not going to agree. And if we release all of these terrorists that are in prison for a damn good reason, that they are going to cause more harm, death, and destruction to the Israeli people. We're going to lose more lives than we get back out of this deal in the long run. Instead of hamstringing our soldiers and allowing them to get killed and wounded and allowing Hamas to escape these places with their evacuation corridors and the early warnings of these raids and the roof knocking and all this shit, dropping flyers, warning them that things are like, instead of going over the top, go in there and allow the military to do their job. Trust in your military to have freaking, trust in your leadership, trust in your military, trust in your combat leaders to have the discernment not to kill civilians. They've been doing a damn good job. They've been doing 10x better job than the United States military ever did.
Yeah.
Who are we to tell them, the IDF, that they don't know what they're doing? I've had IDF, SF members on this channel speaking openly, saying that they have been denied airstrikes in active contact, active troops in contact, denied airstrikes from pilots that were concerned about potential civilian casualties.
Yeah, well, our Air Force is the most liberal branch of the military, and it's also that I can 100% confirm. I've been present for that.
Right. And so it's not like the Israeli Air Force or the Israeli Defense Force is trying to do shit. I was talking to you.
Yeah.
I was talking to you back in June when the 5 hostages got killed down in Rafah, right? Was that June?
Yeah.
Or July? And you had told me that.
Yeah.
Right. And you had told me that you have personally stood in that frickin' school where that tunnel entrance was located. It gave you frickin' chills. You guys are respecting the civilian infrastructure. You guys are making dang sure down to the pilot that it, is putting the lives of Palestinian people over the people that they are fighting beside. They're supposed to be providing cover for. The pilots are refusing to drop and putting Israeli lives at risk. It is not the IDF.
It's not the IDF, but I actually want to say something because I just saw right before I called in, I saw a headline that made my blood boil, which is that Biden was giving some sort of interview or something, and he was talking about all the things that he did in the war, and he said, I told Bibi, you can't just carpet bomb those cities. You can't do that. And Bibi said, well, you guys did that. You guys carpet bombed Berlin. You guys dropped nuclear bombs to end World War II. And I was like, and basically the gist of the article was so they both Biden just admitted they both committed war crimes. And I was like, that made me so angry because there was literally never even one time a carpet bombing. That conversation
Correct.
Never happened. I don't know if they were talking about 2,000-pound bomb or whatever they were talking about.
But even then, that's uneducated.
Yeah. I know that Biden's really not with it, but he needs to just stop talking because the fact that he said that made me so angry because we put so many lives and limbs on the line to avoid exactly those situations and to respect civilian infrastructure and civilians, civilian life and safety. And we do all of these ridiculous things. And so for him to turn around and casually say in an interview that he was, schmoozing with Bibi and they were talking about carpet bombing cities is just outrageous.
It's absolutely appalling. And I'll tell you why it's appalling, because number one, that's a waste, right? To carpet bomb and think that you're going to do something. You're talking about risking killing civilians, hostages, killing the hostages and killing civilians and carpet bombing and all this stuff. Not to mention, when you look at the actual damage and destruction that's in Gaza, you look at the collateral damages, the buildings specifically, you can see plenty of places, and I'm sure you can personally testify to this, that there is plenty of places in Gaza where there is one house that is destroyed and the entire neighborhood's okay, or that there's a house that's destroyed, a couple places down, there's another building that's destroyed, and there's buildings that's destroyed, picked and choose across the streets, perfectly intact. It's not carpet bombing. It's precision.
No, it is precision. There's actually just a video that went out also today, and they were like, Israel bombed an aid station, and it shows a drone that was hovering over a building for the people there they saw the incoming drone hovering over the building, dropped the bomb, and there was a delayed, I'm just losing the word, but explosion, delayed detonation.
Mm-hmm.
And I have reason to believe, I have reasonable intel, I suppose, reasonable information that it wasn't a quote unquote aid station. It was like a weapons depot, like a weapons cache. But the fact that people were able to see the drone incoming and video it dropping its payload and then it getting out of there, and then it went off, everybody had time to leave the area. And I was like, this, whatever you're trying to say, oh, Israel's bombing an aid station, like, you're literally just proving yourself with your own video.
Yeah. Well, even the video of that, the kids in the truck and stuff like that I just shown shows terrorists right outside of freaking civilian places and the civilians cheering them on and all this crap. You know what I mean? And like, you don't go from on the ground personal testimony of countless service members in the IDF saying that we have been denied airstrikes by the pilots out of fear of civilian casualties, to those very same pilots magically agreed to carpet bomb neighborhoods. And facts that our administration, the White House, even Netanyahu and his entire freaking cabinet, like, nobody's came out and been like, yeah, we did drop a 2,000-pound bomb. Let me explain to you how this bunker buster works. It only has X amount of explosives in it, and it's being detonated underground. With that being said, the blast is contained. Yes, it's reverberating back and forth, and it originally, like, the blast goes up and out. It is far less explosives than your regular 2,000-pound JDAM, and like, actually break this shit down for people. Why? I'd rather have a bunker buster drop next door than a freaking surface det or a slight delay det JDAM, 2,000-pound or 500-pound.
Yeah.
Like, just this, that's my personal experience from eating bombs in combat. Like, what the hell? And if you don't think I've eaten enough bombs to make that statement, go look at the interview that I did with frickin' Jen Davis and watch my eyeball lag as I blink. Like, it is ridiculous.
Yeah. It is.
How they have the balls to make that statement is beyond me. Like, that is a slap in the face. And people want to know why the Israeli service members are pissed. Because they're being painted in a bad light and nobody's doing a damn thing about it. Not the Biden administration and not Netanyahu, to be perfectly honest. Netanyahu's made some pretty good statements about him, but he's also, in my opinion, silences complicity. You know what I mean? And I feel like
he has been very quiet. And in general, they've been very quiet. They just kind of they're not speaking out at all. Like, almost like they got tired of talking about it, but it's not really fair.
Right. And at this point, like, I'm so worked up over this because it's so ridiculous. Like, it's like, I almost just need to freaking, like, change the title and the thumbnail on this video, like, it's so appalling. And if you're just now joining us and you're wondering why the title of the video is the Treasury Secretary being hacked by China, which is absolutely legitimate, but we're talking about this because all of the emerging information that's came out about the IDF soldiers inside Gaza refusing orders to withdraw from the Nitram corridor. They don't want to leave because they know it's bad. And they're aware of it. And they're not doing that because they care about their lives. They're sticking their necks out there, putting their lives on the line, like, literally risking jail. Like, I don't even, what is the penalty for freaking disobeying an order on that scale inside of the IDF?
I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. And I think it depends how the situation develops. If it's on a smaller scale, then it is definitely military prison. And also almost worse because it's such a small country, but like demonization in the media.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they will put your face everywhere. Previously, like, people who have disobeyed orders have been, like, basically named and shamed and then also thrown in prison. But I don't know what they're going to do in this specific instance because it's from the information that I'm getting, it's like widespread. It's kind of like units being like, we're not, no thanks, we're not going.
Sure. Right. And you're not wrong saying people are being publicly blamed and shamed. Like, look at what happened when Hamas accused the Israeli soldiers of raping them in prison.
Mm-hmm.
And how those people were hamstrung. And then when we finally get our hands on the video, it's nothing like what's described. Not at all. They literally go and remove a shiv from his butt, and they do it on camera on purpose. And they shield to protect his frickin' privacy.
Yep.
They're not in there stirring things around. You don't see the guy pull something out of his pocket and shove it up in there and pull it out and go, aha, I found a smoking gun. None of that's in there. That's why they're released. But the media never turned around and did that. So yeah, they're pissed.
And now they have this organization, the Hind Rajab organization. I think it's headquartered in the Netherlands, but they take people's pictures from Instagram, like Israeli soldiers that, you know, are off, and they're blasting it onto the internet, and they're pressuring countries to arrest them on charges of, you know, breaking international law, human rights violations. And that's wild. But that's not even in the Israeli media. That's like, literally, you're not safe if you go travel in South America or Thailand, or they'll blast these people's pictures out and be like, hey, Argentina, are you going to arrest this person for human rights violations? And they show pictures of them.
I've seen that
in Gaza or whatever.
I've seen that. I want to read you a donation that came in. It's for $75. It came from Vic. He said, I really appreciate you, Brother Matt, for sharing your valuable experience, speaking the truth, and taking the hits on. I really wish he would have expanded that to you as well for coming out and speaking today as well, on the things that you've seen over there and what actually happens. I don't understand why our government hasn't called, and when I say our, I'm talking about the U.S. government, hasn't called upon people like you and been like, hey, our president just said the most inflammatory shit. What did you experience on the ground? You know, we got, I'm going to pronounce his name wrong. I'm going to screw it up because I'm doing it off the top of my head, and you'll be able to correct me on it. Is it Dorian Cater?
Duran
Cater? Yeah.
Yeah.
He's coming to the United States on a speaking engagement and speaking tour. IDF SOF, very intelligent, lots of time on the ground. He even documented the humanitarian aid pier in Gaza. And he's coming on a speaking tour across the United States. Why hasn't the U.S. government grabbed people like him and said, our president is accusing Israel of war crimes or has extremely inflammatory language, talk about carpet bombing and everything else. What is your experience? That seems like a pretty common sense thing to do.
Yeah, it does, but I don't know. I've been concerned about some of the people that now the administration has been walking this like very squiggly line between supporting Israel and then also hamstringing them. But the incoming administration, some of the people that work for the Trump campaign or are close to the Trump campaign have been saying some interesting things lately that make me slightly nervous. Including Trump tweeted out this morning or truthed out about how Hamas said that Trump made more. He was like, "Oh, Hamas said that he made more progress in a week than the Biden administration did in a year." And I was like, "Are you bragging that Hamas is thanking you?" Like, I'm a little confused here.
No, I think it had to do because he sent an envoy for his administration over to the negotiations because it's coming up to transition time. And so he sent his envoy over there and likely to speak about what's to come when he is president. That makes sense. And I don't think it's bragging about it, because if he forced them to accept this deal, which would include keeping the IDF inside of Gaza, and when you look at the language that's included in there, it's being pulled out from the major cities, right? Gaza City. Don't be in the middle of Gaza City. Don't be in the middle of Khan Yunis. Don't be in the middle of Rafah. Cool. we'll go and we'll cordon off the outside. Netzarim corridor cuts right through the middle of freaking Gaza. To my knowledge, it's not. It's on the outskirts of Gaza City. Is that correct? Like the way I see it on the map and what's actually out there and the buffer space that's been established, it looks like it's on the outskirts.
Yeah, it's outside.
So the original agreement was to be out of the cities, such as Gaza City. Netzarim corridor isn't in Gaza City. It's on the outskirts. It's south of it. I feel like I have to put this up on a map for people so that they understand what we're talking about. That would probably be wise, right? So yeah. And if Hamas is going back on the original plan and they know it because they're being ordered to pull out, I'd be pissed myself. Man, I don't know. What do you think is going to happen?
With this deal?
Yeah. What do you think is going to happen? I'll give you my thoughts afterwards, but what do you think is going to happen?
If it makes it to Monday, I hope / think that they will release the B-bus children or their bodies. And the 4 female observers, Leary, Naama, Kareen, and I forgot the 4th one. Forgive me, I forgot the first one's name. And then maybe Shiri, the mom of the B-bus kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't see it any way it's not going to break down shortly after that. I don't think people think the Americans are going to come out first. I don't think so, because it's a bargaining chip for them.
It is a huge bargaining chip for them. And it was interesting, I looked at the numbers that Hamas was talking about releasing on like the first day. It's an odd number. I'll have to pull it up. I've got the map up on the screen here, showing Gaza City and like where that's located and where the corridor's at. And generally speaking, for those that are kind of like unfamiliar with it, you look for where the U.S. port was at over there, and then it goes and it cuts it right in half. And it's just shocking to me because there's so many videos. You know what? I think there's actually a video that I could show people to explain to them. How do you spell that corridor? I always get it wrong.
Netzzarim. In the third.
So there is videos that the IDF has shown, like here's overhead imagery from December of last year of the corridor. Like this is what the corridor looks like, right? But I promise you as well, we're going to end up, look at that. It's like there's nothing around it. And so there's videos that IDF soldiers have released that show, here's the corridor again. There, and you see like the vast majority of it is outside the city, right? This whole area down here south, these are all villages. This isn't the city. This is like the outskirts. This is like the suburbs. This isn't the city itself. And so like there's videos that have been posted. I'm looking for them right now where the IDF was straight up driving down the corridor and there's not a dang thing in sight. Like you can't see it.
Yeah.
I'm looking for it right now because I think it's important that people see that and like what's actually there, what's actually, versus what's not. And it's really
not even fully paved. Like people think it's like a actual like thoroughfare, but it's not even fully paved.
Right. Yeah. The video I'm looking for is an older one. Here's a portion of it. So here's one. It's not the video I was looking for. Here's a portion of the corridor that we're talking about, right? Like it's paved. This portion that they're driving on, it's a little bit newer of a video. There's nothing around it. And this is the secure corridor that they've been using to move men, weapons, and equipment, gather supplies from the port when it was open. Not that it made any sense, but gather supplies from the port when it was open. And it's key terrain inside Gaza. It's absolutely key terrain, right? It's crucial for the IDF to maintain it.
Yeah.
And if they lose it, if they give it up, they're going to have to fight for it back. There's going to be IEDs on that road. There is going to be RPGs. There could be freaking ATGMs still in Gaza that haven't been used yet that they could set up anywhere on this high ground as Israel, is moving along it as they go in. You know, they could have a freaking tunnel network right up here on this hillside and have a anti-tank guided missile and take out freaking God only knows how many people, cram the road up, create a kill zone, kill a ton of people. It's dangerous. It's absolutely dangerous. And with the air support being as shoddy as it is for the Israeli Defense Force, it makes sense why they wouldn't want to pull out and leave it. I would be comfortable with it if I got, you know, if I was the ground force commander and I got final drop authority on targets when I'm in contact, I'd feel a little bit more confident about it, but that's not what's happening. The ground force commander does not have drop authority. He does, but the pilots are also blessing off on it, as well as a lot of other people. So I wouldn't feel confident if I was the ground force commander. I wouldn't feel confident as a freaking, you know, operator on the ground that people are going to have my back and my friends are not going to. I don't care if I lose my life. I'm more concerned over my friends. I'm more concerned over their families. I'm more concerned for the citizens that I'm protecting because I know what the ground truth is. And the ground truth is that they are not just going to give this up, that they are not going to stop fighting. It's appalling.
They're absolutely not going to give it up.
Man. Well, thank you for calling in. Is there anything else you wanted to get out? Anything else you wanted to say?
I really just, I want to thank you and I want to thank this channel. Like, you guys have all been amazing. And I am really in awe and have so much gratitude for the fact that you are always speaking the truth and speaking truth to power. And I think that you've created an amazing community, and it's very heartening that there are people that are doing their due diligence and doing the work. And it's not even that you have to do the research, but they are honestly, they're looking at this with having an honest take. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate you, and I appreciate the community. Everyone has been super supportive and kind.
Well, thank you, ma'am. I really appreciate you. And as always, if you need anything, reach out. Thanks for calling. Thanks for talking.
Thank you.
Thanks for giving people a voice that don't currently have one by their own government, in my opinion. And that may be an inflammatory statement within itself. So I apologize.
Yeah, no.
But that's how I would feel.
Privilege.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly how I would feel. And that's exactly, I think if anybody can understand the pain and the amount of freaking stupidity that the Israeli soldiers look at right now with this thing and their thinking and their refusal of the orders, I think if anybody can understand that feeling of knowing what's to come, even though politics are, you know, taking part, it would be U.S. service members after watching what took place in Afghanistan. I think U.S. service members of all people can sit and look at this and empathize to a degree, but not nearly the degree that Israeli service members can, because unlike Afghanistan, Israel shares a border with Gaza. And their munitions have the capability of reaching the citizens that they're protecting. Hamas's munitions have the ability to reach the citizens that they're protecting. Hell, even small arms fire has the ability to affect Israelis. We didn't have that in Afghanistan. That's a huge difference that I think the world is struggling to understand and comprehend, that these people are monsters. They took a 9-month-old baby hostage, and you are willing to negotiate with them. You've lost your damn mind. They do not respect anything other than brute force. That is a fact.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll catch up. Promise.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to go ahead and complete my rant on Israel and go over to, I'm going to skip over some of this other stuff that's out there. There is some headlines coming across for like the Russia-Ukraine war that we can get into. Ukraine itself has been going around rounding up draft dodgers today. It sounds like over 200 people have actually been arrested for crossing the border illegally, doing all of those things over inside of, or maybe, excuse me, not arrested, but they conducted over 200 searches. Conducted over 200 searches for draft dodgers over inside of Ukraine. That's freaking insane. That is so many people that have been dodging going to the war front. And the reason I think that a lot of people are pissed off about that or are looking at it, it's like, dude, if the rest of the world is going to be providing, things for you, we expect your citizens to stand up and do the right thing as well. And it looks like there's a lot of men that have been, for lack of better terms, bitching out. And that's no longer okay. Biden came out with an order of clemency that he ended up granting to 2,500 people. No shit. Check this out. I am commuting the sentences of nearly 2,500 people convicted of non-violent drug offenses who are severely serving disproportionately long sentences compared to the sentences they would have received under current law, policy, and practice. A lot of people that are in law enforcement know for a fact that these sentences that they got were likely a plea deal, because over 90% of criminal cases in the United States, doesn't matter whether they go to federal trial or whether they're local state trials, county or state, whatever. It doesn't matter if it's a federal court or state, that these people have likely taken a plea deal, which gives them lesser charges and lesser sentencing. That's how that works. And so when he's sitting here saying that they're disproportionate and so on and so forth, that's how that works in this country. And so right here in this 2,500, I haven't looked into it, but I guarantee you other people will. But I promise you, out of this 2,500 that he says are nonviolent, and this is where people fail to understand, is I'm pretty sure he uses the words nonviolent. There it is right there. It was right up top. Convicted of nonviolent drug offenses. If you are dealing meth, if you are dealing heroin, if you are dealing opioids, if you are dealing Oxycontin, if you are dealing Percocets, if you are out there dealing opioids on the street, chances are somebody that you dealt to has died as a result of your overdose, as an overdose. That's violent to me. You gave people that ability. I'm also a constitutionalist, and I look at it and I say, you know what people want to do with their own bodies is up to them. But the fact is that drug dealers also, believe it or not the low-level guys, but I'm talking the people that are moving keys. Those people also get involved with human trafficking. And so we are literally letting, I guarantee it's going to come out. Some reporter somewhere is going to do digging into this, and they're going to find somebody that is the case. And it's offensive, and I look forward to reporting on it when it comes out. And remember that I told you about it first. Now, on to the, how do I want to say this? On to the Treasury being hacked. That's a very real thing. It's a very, very real thing. Let me open up this video and get it on the screen for you guys so that you can listen to it. This reporting is coming from Yahoo News. Just listen. Oh, for the love of God. Come on, buddy. Why you got to be that way?
Tech and climate. More than what you need to know, it's what you need to think about.
So we've seen the president-elect talk about large, universal, punitive tariffs. Do you have any insight into how they might respond if they are threatened with something like that?
Well, I really don't want to make a forecast. Many countries, when they're faced with unilateral actions of that sort, look for ways to retaliate, and my guess would be that they would do that. We have in areas of concern where I've expressed repeatedly concerns with overcapacity that is developed in Chinese advanced manufacturing industries and clean energy, semiconductors, and the like. We think it reflects active, large subsidies that are flooding the world with exports and threaten to drive our firms out of business in areas that we think are critical to our own future. We've put in place tariffs. Now, they're strategic. They affected $18 billion worth of trade, certainly not all of our trade with China. And we did it to make sure that China's actions don't undermine our own plans to support these sectors. But broad-based tariffs, almost all economists agree that what they will do is hurt us by raising prices, possibly substantially, and making it more expensive for firms that need inputs from China to be able to acquire them, and harm our competitiveness of firms that rely on those imports. So we've taken a strategic approach, focusing narrowly, and a broad-based approach I have serious concerns with, as most economists do.
Okay, so there's your motive. We ended up putting a buttload of frickin' tariffs and everything else over on China. And I'm telling you right now, the stuff that I'm about to show you inside this article, there is going to be a lot more behind it whenever you have a foreign intelligence service that ends up hacking into the U.S. Treasury's office. And she's got the reason. She just gave you the motive, because the amount of frickin' commerce that we've affected, the amount of tariffs and all that other crap that we've been throwing on these people, this is their reason why. Now, there's several different ways that they can go about getting this information and attacking it. The easiest way to describe when it comes down to hacking into these systems or making it happen, which a lot of people are like, well, it's a government system, how can they do it? It works the exact same way. Man-in-the-middle attacks, everything else. And so when they're able to start essentially mimicking the screens and seeing what's happening of these individuals, they're able to start getting this. And what they ended up saying is U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen's computer was infiltrated and unclassified files were accessed as part of a broader breach of the agency by Chinese state-sponsored hackers, according to two people familiar with it. So Chinese state-sponsored hackers end up jumping in and freaking hacking in to the Treasury Secretary. And it's a broader breach. So she's talking about unclassified files were accessed as part of a broader breach. So what other files were accessed? And just because they weren't classified doesn't mean that they're not extremely sensitive or damning to the United States government. The attackers also hacked the computers of two people, two of Yellen's lieutenants, Deputy Secretary Wallen Ademo and Acting Undersecretary Brad Smith, according to the people who asked not to be identified discussing the sensitive information. Fewer than 50 files on Yellen's machine were accessed. One of the people said 50 files or less accessed that they're aware of. And this is the key. It's not that they were able to discover it. It's that it happened and they accessed a freaking secure system. Think about that. If we allowed them to access over 50 files and that's all we caught, imagine what other crap that they were able to get. Christopher Hincliffe comes in and he says, I know a few who is not here because of that or becoming that. And what he means is he's referring to the drugs. He's referring to the opioids. He's referring to drug dealers, regardless of who they are, being violent offenders because they're actually supplying things that are poisoning people and killing them. That's common sense, man. That's violent. You're giving people shit that you think is safe or that you report to be safe at a certain strength or whatever it is, and it ends up killing them. That's not okay. If your doctor grossly overprescribed or just gave you free run on medication, dude, that dude would be in jail forever. And to let these people out is absolutely ridiculous. The compromise of her computer makes the Treasury breach the latest hack attributed to the Chinese government that has reached the top ranks of a U.S. federal department. The attackers appear to focus on Treasury role in sanctions, intelligence, and internal affairs, but didn't penetrate the department's email or classified systems, according to Treasury report previously reviewed by Bloomberg News. Now, anybody that's been on government computer systems knows that even on the unclassed network, there's shit on there that you don't want other people to see. It's still sensitive information. And the way the government tries to portray this as if this isn't a big deal is absolutely appalling. So now, we've talked about this before. You have Russia that's acting up over inside of Ukraine. You have Iran has been acting up over the last year of this administration in conjunction with Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, North Korea. All these people who were kept quiet for the longest time are now choosing to act up. And they happen to be all the people that are associated with Russia and China. And now China finally hits mainstream media, is coming out and doing dirty stuff. And this is after they just got caught, a couple days ago, damaging cables the same way that Russia did with these little ghost ships dragging frickin' anchors across the bottom of the sea, wrecking these cables. They got caught doing that just a couple days ago. Now China is finally coming up. The snowball effect is getting bigger, and I think the American people need to open their damn eyes. in my opinion. And that's all I'm going to say about that. China, China, China. Everybody hates China. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me for another episode of the Speak the Truth podcast. I appreciate every single one of you. Peace.